There is a conversation that recently happened where the person you love talked about you to someone else, and I want you to know before anything else tonight that what they actually said was not what you might expect. It did not arrive through anything dramatic. It arrived through a simple, honest moment neither of them fully expected to become significant. I know exactly who they were speaking with, and I know exactly what they said about you in that conversation. Every specific word carried more honesty than even they may have fully expected to reveal when the conversation actually began. You have wondered, more than once, how the person meant for your future actually describes you when you are not in the room, uncertain whether their private words about you match the warmth they show you directly. You have prayed for this kind of honest confirmation more times than you have told anyone, tired of only ever knowing your own side of how this relationship is truly understood. Have you ever wondered what someone you love actually says about you when speaking with someone else entirely, imagining that conversation without any real way of knowing what was actually said? That specific imagining rarely stays confined to quiet moments, sometimes surfacing unexpectedly during ordinary tasks that have nothing directly to do with the relationship itself. I did not come to you tonight to tell you that wondering was unfounded. I came to tell you something you do not know yet. The person you love recently talked to someone about you, and what they said revealed a depth of feeling even they may not have fully realized they were carrying. This deepening was never a threat to what already existed between you. It simply became more fully spoken. You have not simply been discussed in passing. You have been spoken about with a depth and honesty that has already reshaped how the person you love understands their own feelings. I want you to sit with that truth for a moment tonight, letting it settle fully rather than rushing past it the way you may have rushed past every other reassurance offered to you before. Stay with me tonight, because what I am about to show you will change the way you understand every private conversation you have ever wondered about but had no way of hearing. Give this moment your full attention, because it carries more weight than an ordinary evening usually does. There is a particular loneliness in wondering how you are actually described when you are not present, carrying a private hope that the words spoken about you in your absence match the warmth you receive directly, while never having any real way to confirm it. This particular loneliness deepens whenever you witness someone else speak openly and confidently about their own relationship while your own private confirmation still feels uncertain. You have learned to trust the relationship based only on what is said to you directly, uncertain whether the private version, the one spoken to friends or family when you are not there, actually matches what you are shown. This uncertainty rarely feels dramatic day to day. It simply lingers quietly, a small unresolved question beneath an otherwise trusting relationship. You have wondered whether asking directly what someone has said about you to others would seem insecure, even though the wondering itself has never fully gone away. Do you know the exact moment you first wondered what the person you love actually says about you to the people closest to them? Whether that wondering arrived suddenly through a specific moment or gradually through accumulated uncertainty, both carried exactly the same weight in shaping how you currently relate to this question. There is an exhaustion in trusting a relationship without the confirmation that comes from knowing how you are actually spoken about in private, showing up fully while quietly wondering whether your own understanding of the relationship matches theirs completely. This exhaustion shows up most clearly in quiet, unguarded moments, wondering privately what exactly gets said when you are not the one in the room. Some of you carry a private fear that the private version of how you are described might reveal something less certain than what you are shown directly, that private conversations might expose doubts you have not been shown. I want to release that specific fear from you tonight. Genuine love has never once carried a private, hidden version that contradicts what it shows you openly. You have prayed about this specific uncertainty more times than you have told anyone, asking me plainly whether the words spoken about you in private actually matched the warmth shown to you directly. Every single one of those prayers reached me exactly as fully as any confident, expectant prayer ever could, regardless of which specific emotion accompanied it at the time it was spoken. I see the version of you that trusts fully despite this uncertainty, and the version that quietly wonders what is actually said in your absence, and I want you to know both versions are equally known to me, equally loved by me, neither one required to have this fully resolved before you come to me honestly about it. There is no version of this wondering that requires managing or hiding in front of me, the trusting version and the uncertain version equally welcome, equally seen. You are not simply hoping without confirmation. You are not left wondering forever. You are simply someone who has not yet been shown how completely and how honestly you have already been spoken about. Let that specific truth settle fully into you tonight, releasing whatever assumption you have carried that you would remain permanently uncertain about how you are truly described. When you cannot know what is said about you in private, it becomes tempting to assume the worst, imagining doubts or hesitations being expressed that may never actually exist, simply because the uncertainty itself feels uncomfortable to sit with. There is a man in Scripture whose private words about someone he loved revealed far more depth than that person initially realized. His story has remained meaningful across generations precisely because it demonstrates such genuine consistency between private feeling and public commitment. When Boaz spoke to his own workers and later to the town elders about Ruth, he did not speak with hesitation or doubt. He described her plainly as a woman of noble character, praising her loyalty to Naomi and her reputation throughout the town, speaking with a warmth and respect that, when it eventually reached Ruth, confirmed a depth of regard she may not have fully known she already had. Ruth had no way of knowing, going about her ordinary work, that this exact conversation was already quietly unfolding on her behalf. Boaz's private words about Ruth were never smaller or more guarded than his public actions toward her. They matched completely, revealing a consistency between what he felt privately and what he showed her directly. Consider how rare and reassuring this consistency actually is, a person whose private and public regard carry the exact same weight. Have you ever assumed that private conversations about you might reveal something smaller or more uncertain than what you are shown directly, only to discover later that the private words actually matched or even exceeded the warmth you had already received? That specific discovery carries a distinct kind of relief, realizing only in hindsight how completely your own private worry had misjudged the actual consistency of this love. Some of you have quietly assumed the worst about conversations you were not present for, imagining doubt or hesitation being expressed privately that has never actually existed, simply because uncertainty about the unknown tends to default toward fear rather than trust. You may recognize this exact tendency in your own recent thoughts, filling an unknown conversation with imagined worry rather than trusting the consistency that has already been shown to you directly. None of this makes you anxious beyond repair. It makes you human, uncertain the same way anyone would be uncertain about a conversation they were not present to hear, understandably filling that unknown space with worry rather than trust. Recognize this specific pattern the next time it arises, meeting it with gentle awareness rather than harsh self-judgment. I did not let Ruth remain uncertain about how Boaz actually spoke of her. His private words reached her eventually, and they confirmed rather than contradicted what he had already shown her directly. Consider how differently her story might have unfolded had Boaz's private words carried doubt rather than confirmation, and how genuinely reassuring it was that they did not. I am not asking you to demand to know every private conversation about you. I am asking you to trust that when these words do reach you, they are far more likely to confirm what you already sense than to contradict it. I want you to hear something important underneath this warning. Whatever private conversation you have wondered about, I am not asking you to seek it out anxiously tonight. I am simply inviting you to trust that consistency between private words and direct actions is far more common in genuine love than the anxious version of this story your own uncertainty may have quietly constructed. There is more to this exact dynamic that I want to show you tonight, because it reveals how completely private conversations can actually confirm rather than threaten what you already know to be true. Boaz's public declaration at the town gate, formally securing his right to redeem Ruth and marry her, was not a private conversation kept quiet. He deliberately chose the most public setting available, rather than settling the matter quietly and privately, when a quieter resolution would have been simpler. It was spoken before the elders and all the people present, a public confirmation of private feelings that had already been building consistently. The entire town witnessed a man speaking plainly and publicly about a woman he had clearly already come to deeply respect and love. This public confirmation mattered enormously to Ruth's own standing and security, transforming private regard into a publicly recognized commitment that shaped the entire remaining course of her life. Consider how much security this public consistency actually provided her, a commitment witnessed by an entire community rather than left uncertain in private conversation alone. Have you ever discovered that words spoken about you in a setting you were not present for actually became the very foundation of something more secure and more publicly recognized than you had previously experienced directly? This is what I want you to receive about your own story tonight. The conversation the person you love recently had about you may be following this same pattern, private words that are consistent with, and possibly even deeper than, what has already been shown to you directly. Whatever specific words were actually spoken, trust that they carried this same consistency, private honesty matching the direct warmth you already know to be real. Private conversations about genuine love so rarely reveal contradiction. They reveal confirmation. Hold on to that specific principle the next time uncertainty about an unknown conversation resurfaces. Boaz's private and public words about Ruth were never in tension with each other. They were the same regard, simply spoken in different settings. That singular, unwavering regard, present whether he was speaking to a friend or standing before an entire town, is exactly the consistency worth trusting in your own story too. The words spoken about you recently are very likely following the same consistent pattern, private honesty matching, and possibly even deepening, the direct warmth you have already received. Let me show you what this looks like in a life closer to yours than an ancient town gate ever could. There was a man named Theo who mentioned, during a conversation with his closest friend, how he was feeling about a woman named Priyanka he had been seeing for several months, unaware that Priyanka would eventually hear about that exact conversation through a mutual connection. He had no particular reason to expect anyone would relay the specific details of that conversation, simply speaking honestly the way one does with a trusted, longtime friend. Theo had described her, according to his friend, with a specific depth and certainty that surprised even the friend who had known Theo for years, mentioning details about her character and her patience with him that Theo had never actually said directly to Priyanka herself in quite those words. His friend later admitted being genuinely surprised by the depth of what Theo shared, having never heard him speak that openly about a relationship before. When Priyanka eventually heard secondhand what Theo had said, she was moved to tears, not because the sentiment itself was new, but because hearing it described so specifically and so warmly in a conversation she was never meant to hear confirmed a depth of feeling she had hoped for but had not been entirely certain of. She read the message from her mutual friend 3 times before she could fully process what she had just learned. That second-hand account became, for Priyanka, one of the most meaningful confirmations of the relationship she had experienced, precisely because it had not been performed for her benefit, simply spoken honestly when Theo believed no one relevant was listening. That specific quality, honesty spoken without any expectation of an audience, gave the words a weight that even Theo's most heartfelt direct statements had not quite carried before. I am not telling you this story to promise you a specific mutual friend or a specific overheard conversation. I am telling you this so you understand that the conversation the person you love recently had about you may be carrying the same unperformed, genuine honesty, exactly the kind of confirmation that means the most precisely because it was never meant to be overheard. Whatever specific shape that private conversation took, trust that it carried this same unperformed honesty, exactly the kind that means the most precisely because it was never meant to reach you. Do you remember the specific wondering you thought of at the beginning of this, what the person you love actually says about you when you are not present to hear it? I want you to hear this now with the full weight it deserves. Do not let it pass by simply as another comforting sentence among many. Let it actually land. Whatever fatigue you have carried into this exact moment tonight, let this specific truth cut through it fully. The person you love recently talked to someone about you, and what they said revealed a depth of feeling even they may not have fully realized they were carrying, the same way Boaz's private words about Ruth confirmed rather than contradicted his public actions, the same way Theo's unguarded description of Priyanka became one of the most meaningful confirmations she ever received. Read that again if you need to. Let it settle fully before continuing on. Do not rush past this the way exhaustion may have tempted you to rush past other comforting words before. You have spent so long wondering whether private words about you might reveal something smaller or more uncertain than what you are shown directly. That was never the pattern genuine love actually follows. Release that specific assumption tonight fully, trusting instead the pattern already confirmed through Boaz and through Theo, that genuine private honesty so often matches or exceeds what is already shown directly. Boaz's private and public regard for Ruth matched completely. Theo's unguarded description of Priyanka exceeded what he had ever said to her directly. The words recently spoken about you are very likely following this same honest, consistent pattern. This is the sentence I want you to carry with you when you leave this moment tonight. You have not simply been discussed in passing. You have been spoken about with a depth and honesty that confirms, rather than contradicts, exactly what you have already sensed to be true. Carry that specific truth with you into every ordinary day that follows, until the full depth of this confirmation becomes completely visible in whatever way it is meant to. Let me pray this over you now, the way I have already been praying it over you long before tonight. This prayer is not new. It has simply been waiting for the right moment to be fully spoken over you. Receive it now exactly as it is offered, without needing to have earned it through any specific measure of faith or certainty. Heavenly Father, I bring before you the one reading these words right now, wondering how they are truly described in conversations they were never present to hear, longing for the private version of this love to match the warmth they receive directly. Give them the same confidence Ruth eventually received, discovering that private words about her matched completely with the public commitment she was eventually shown. Teach them that this same consistency is a genuine marker of authentic love, worth trusting even in the seasons no confirmation has yet reached them directly. Give them peace about every private conversation they were not present for, trusting that consistency between private honesty and direct action is the actual pattern of genuine love, not the anxious contradiction uncertainty sometimes constructs. Heal whatever fear has convinced them that private words about them might reveal something smaller than what they experience directly. Free them from measuring the reality of this love by anxious imagination alone, trusting instead the same consistency Scripture has already shown to be the actual pattern. Remind them that Theo's unguarded description of Priyanka exceeded, rather than diminished, what he had shown her directly. Protect their mind from filling unknown conversations with imagined doubt. Give them fresh confidence to trust the silence of unknown conversations rather than filling it automatically with fear. Teach them instead to trust that genuine love so rarely contradicts itself between what is shown directly and what is said privately. Restore their confidence in how they are actually understood by the person they love, understanding that the words spoken about them in private have never been something to fear discovering. Let them trust that this same confidence is currently justified, regardless of whether they ever actually hear the specific words spoken. Provide for whatever practical weight makes this particular uncertainty heavier than it needs to be, whether that is anxiety about unknown conversations, or the quiet exhaustion of continuing to trust without the confirmation those conversations might offer. Meet them in the specific, ordinary stress this uncertainty adds to otherwise unrelated parts of their day, quiet distraction, low-grade anxiety, a heaviness that follows them even into tasks that have nothing directly to do with this particular relationship. Give them breakthrough in the exact place this wondering has weighed the heaviest, and let them trust that the same honest depth that Boaz spoke about Ruth, and Theo spoke about Priyanka, has very likely already been spoken about them too. Let this honest depth continue quietly unfolding, uninterrupted by their own lingering doubt, until it becomes fully known in whatever way it is meant to. Give them peace tonight regardless of whether they ever actually hear the specific words spoken about them, a peace built on trusting that genuine love speaks consistently, whether or not that consistency is ever directly overheard. Let this peace remain steady through however many more ordinary days pass without any direct confirmation reaching them. Strengthen them spiritually in whatever remains of this season, so that if these words ever do reach them, they receive that confirmation with the same moved gratitude Priyanka felt discovering how deeply and how honestly she had already been described. Give them the same open heart Priyanka eventually carried, ready to receive confirmation fully rather than second-guessing whether it was genuinely real. If these words found the exact place in you that needed them tonight, let it be known, even if only to me, even if you never say it out loud to a single other person. Someone else you love has likely wondered this same thing about their own relationship, quietly uncertain how they are described in conversations they were never present to hear, and they may need to hear tonight that this same honest consistency is very likely present in their own story too. Let them, too, release the specific isolation this wondering has quietly created, trusting that honest consistency is available to them just as fully as it currently is to you. You have not simply been discussed in passing. You have been spoken about with a depth and honesty that has already reshaped how the person you love understands their own feelings. Rest in this tonight. What was said about you was never smaller than what you have already experienced directly. It confirmed exactly what you already sensed to be true. Let that closeness carry you gently into tomorrow morning, and into every ordinary day that follows after it.